Their capital requests, most of them I think are on OneDrive, but none of us have access, so I'm not going to try to deal with them tonight because
Okay.
I think everybody needs a chance to look at them first before we start discussing it. If that's agreeable to everybody.
Certainly, yep.
Makes sense, Sam.
What?
It certainly makes sense. I think we all probably tried to poke around and find them and didn't. So I'm a little bit relieved that you're taking that approach.
Yeah. Well, why don't we get started on the minutes? The first one I have down is the minutes of 7/26, and I hope everybody's had a chance to read them. I did email them out. So I don't know if anybody has any comments on the minutes.
I do not. I had a chance to read them and did not have comments.
Anybody else?
I read them, Sam, but I wasn't there, so.
Yeah, but did you see any errors or things we should add or?
Oh, I could have revised them totally, but it would have been, it wouldn't have been appropriate. So,
Well, did we get the gist of what we did?
yeah, I got the gist, right?
I had no comments.
Thank you. Anybody ready to propose that we accept them?
So moved. I move we accept the minutes of July 26, 2021.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? We'll do a roll call vote. Brian,
I, Brian Host.
Francine,
Aye, Francine Lyons.
Ralph,
I, Ralph Dormitzer.
Susan,
Well, I wasn't there either, but yes, I vote to accept them.
okay, I can't remember who was there and who wasn't there, but, Mike Dick.
So
Yeah.
Sam, Mike had to drop off. His camera and his audio were not working. He's going to try to dial right back in.
Okay, well. So 7/26, Sam Wakeman, aye. So I've got a vote of 4-0 to approve. The minutes of 10/25. Anybody have any comments on them?
There was only one curious thing that although we voted to approve, this is the water main improvement on Elm Street. It was actually underway as we were approving it, so it was.
Yeah, I know.
An after
Some
the
of-
fact thing, but
Some of
anyway,
these things don't want to wait for us.
I guess that's right, but anyway.
But what you're saying, Ralph, is we didn't have much time.
Well, if they had ignored us, we would have no recourse anyway, so.
Yeah. Anybody want to propose that we approve them?
All right, I'll move the meeting minutes of 10/25/2021.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Is that Francine?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's
I
okay.
have the picture on. All those in favor, and we'll do it as a roll call vote. Brian Host,
Brian Host, aye.
Susan, I don't think you were there. Ralph Dormitzer,
Yeah, Ralph Dormitzer, aye.
Francine Lyons,
Francine Lyons, aye.
and Sam Wakeman, aye. So those are approved 4-0. The minutes of 11-1. Anybody have any comments on them?
They look correct to me. It's Mike. Can you all hear me now?
Yes,
Ah, look at that. Hi, Mike.
Hey, still have a little tweaking here to do.
That's okay. We're on the minutes of November 1st. And I'm noticing I didn't put down, no, I did put down who was there. And if nobody has any comments or changes, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So move, Sam. I move that we approve the minutes of November 1st, 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. We'll do a roll call vote. Brian Host,
Brian Host, aye.
Francine Lyon,
Francine Lyons, aye.
Ralph Dormitzer,
Okay, Ralph Dormitzer, aye.
and Sam Wakeman, aye. So we approve those by 4-0. Thank you all very much. And the next item I have on the agenda is a reorganization. As I think I let you all know, I'd like to step down as chair. I'm willing to continue on, but oh geez, now I got this all fouled up. Hold on a minute. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes,
No,
Yes.
hear you.
Well, it's asking me to sign in again, but
your
That doesn't make
image
sense.
is there and your voice is there, both.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't sign in again because you'll get an echo.
okay. I'm just trying to get. There we go. Okay. So I don't know if anybody has any idea of who we would like to elect as chair and who would be willing to serve as chair.
You know, Sam, one thing it would be helpful for everyone is to go over what you have already sent us, what the duties are of the chair, okay?
Yeah,
That would be helpful so everybody really understands it. And
Okay.
second, what are the unsaid things? For example, how frequently do you actually go to meetings, and who do you have to meet with to actually be successful in this endeavor? Okay, so it just a much fuller understanding. So anybody who's willing to actually be nominated really understands fully how you see the role. I think that's important.
well, I think for critical things you need to understand the budget process in the town and how it works. And how that budget is put together and the potential amount of flexibility within that budget. That's one big item. You have to be able to spend time conversationally with the town manager and the finance director and be willing to go to them at almost any time if you have questions. The finance director is usually pretty good on telling you what you're looking for. The town manager sometimes is evasive on what you're trying to figure out. So that can present a problem. You'll have contact every so often with the selectmen, especially with their liaison, if they give us one. And I'm not sure if it's Jean Depot or not, but I know she's been corresponding with Ralph, trying to figure some stuff out. You have to keep on top of capital request items, knowing when the deadline has been set for them to be submitted, where they're submitted, and make sure that they're going to be available to all members of the Capital Budget Committee. I know Michelle's going to look at OneDrive because she's uploaded some stuff, but none of us can seem to find it. So it doesn't let us look at that and then be ready to ask questions of the various departments. Once you, what I have done is create a spreadsheet with the capital requests and then forward that to all the members of the Capital Budget Committee. And then when we go through the requests the first time, we'll be able to assign responsibility for investigating further each request to an individual. It should be those people who are liaisoning with the department that's making the requests, but sometimes that's not always possible. You have to be willing to deal with almost anybody. If you end up with I would hope you'll never end up with a violent disagreement. I mean, you can agree to disagree, but agree peacefully and, excuse me, in gentlemanly fashion. How much extra time does it take? That's a hard one. It's really just staying on top of the schedule to make sure you don't get too far behind and you get things done in advance of the town meetings so that it can be put in the warrant and also give you a breather. And I don't know if anybody has any further questions, but I'll try to answer them.
I've got a question for you, Sam.
Sure.
When you as chair serve on or sit on one of the major project committees like Town Hall Building Committee.
Right.
How do you draw the line between your contributions in the spirit of trying to help versus your role as chair and being the budget watchdog and having to course correct or make corrections to the group and set expectations that you may not get this if you continue down a particular road. So how do you balance those two?
I'm trying to be very straightforward with them. You know, if they're ignoring the financing part of it, I'll bring that up to them. And I mean, I'm concerned about the financing now of this town hall project.
Yeah.
The town manager and the finance director have created a scenario that I think is a little pie in the sky. I don't
So
think.
how do you bring that down to earth? How do you bring them down to earth?
You just have to push through them. If you can't get them to change their minds, then you take it to the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board, excuse me.
Yep.
You can tell I'm still ancient because I refer to them as the Board of Selectmen, but
Right.
I think you just have to use common sense on it. I don't have an easy answer, Mike.
Yeah. Do you find that happens a lot? Where,
Only with big projects. I think you have to also direct how the various capital requests are going to be financed. Are you going to pay cash, or, which I prefer doing, and my guideline is generally anything under 500,000 cash. Between 500 and $1 million, you have to debate it, and over $1 million, you're probably going to have to bond it. But you have to look at what that does to the town's finances. We always get more capital requests than we have money. It's that simple. So you can't do everything, even though various departments think they are. And, I think throughout the committee, we generally come up with a pretty good list of requests that we want to recommend. And others will drop or shoot back or defer or what else.
thank you.
I don't know if that's helpful.
It is. Thank you.
I think there's a broader question, it's sort of implied in all of that, Sam, and that is that there's a lot of information passed in various ways. And to some degree, I guess it came to me when I talked with Gene Dippold about the funding of the town hall project. It struck me that there's an awful lot going on, which ultimately we will have to have some kind of opinion about, but often are not really well informed until the projects are well along and where we're naysayers more than we are anything else, and therefore can't be contributors to some thoughtful discussion about where are we going. And so I don't know whether it's the job of the chair to try to actually kind of know what's really going on or not. And I could give you multiple examples of stuff that I only find out about quite late and are rarely ever brought to the capital budget committee. And maybe they shouldn't be. I think even this upcoming town warrant is a very interesting example in that when you read it, you see that there's 750,000 going to the town hall, but for what? We don't really know. It's no. Yep. And the other one obviously is the $250,000 for I don't know exactly what it is, but it says for a new school or whatever it says, something similar to that. Anyway, it's not to say those are the only things, but it's sort of a broader question. Is it incumbent on you or incumbent on anyone to really try to be more informed and then therefore also try to inform everybody else? Because I think that's maybe what I'm beginning to see is that there's a lot going on that we don't know about it till quite late. So anyway.
We as a capital budget committee, the people on the call.
Right.
We the capital budget. Yeah.
Well, I know on the warrant, there are several things that the voting booths got pulled away from capital budget and just sort of slipped in.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think there's a tendency of the town management to do that so they don't have to answer questions or come before us. I'm not sure what the easy answer on it is, Ralph. Could you want to raise a huge stink about the voting booths, which are probably needed, but I made a decision not to sort of look the other way.
It isn't any specific thing. It's just the broader question of, given the number of things going on in the town, when do we get involved and how do we get involved? And what's the role of the chairperson to try to keep us informed? Or are we willing to discuss this more openly as individuals, as each of us begins to understand all the things going on in the town? I don't know. I'm just, because I'm sort of frustrated. I'm looking at also things like the Elm Street Corridor project, another $4 million. And, I just look at it all and I say, heavens, this will all be rather well decided long before we ever get to see it. And therefore we become only naysayers at some point in it. So,
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, one reason I wanted to get involved in the town hall project was to try to keep tabs on what was happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I felt if you didn't do that, you'd never find out. And even now, being involved is not a final panacea.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's, you've got to be willing to, I guess, call people on the carpet. Is that the right word?
One suggestion that's come up, and I think Gene would be support this, and maybe a lot of us would support it, would be, is there a need for more joint meetings between the Selectmen Capital Budget Committee and the Advisory Board, and even now, so that there's a sort of at least an understanding of what's going on in the town and whether or not we have a right to say anything about these things, but generally knowing more about what's going on. Then even in the next, with this up-and-coming town meeting, it would have been nice to have had that kind of a meeting in advance of the meeting to understand a lot of the issues being discussed, that we will be discussing at the town meeting. Or maybe we won't discuss them. The other side of it is we may not discuss them at all. They'll just be passed and be done with, right? So.
Well, we
Certainly to iron out any differences too between the different boards, so we don't wind up in the situation we had in 2018, where the Capital Budget Committee, and I'll say rightly so, strenuously objected to the town hall project because the capital budget really had not been involved in the decision-making process. And had they, and been able to raise their concerns, that project might have gone through if there was a meeting of the minds.
Mhm.
Well, anyway, I only raise a lot of these things because the next chairperson is probably going to be having to deal with all of these. So,
Yeah,
anyway,
I
and how
think-
to make the whole system, I don't know, work more smoothly, whatever. So,
well, Ralph, I think you're right. And one thing that comes to mind right now, and I probably should have thought of it several years ago, but to have a regular scheduled meeting with the select board and an advisory committee, just to sort of discuss where things are and what's happening.
I think that would work for me for sure, right? Yeah.
You know, we've done the 10-year capital plan, but that seems to be a struggle to get that updated all the time.
Yeah.
And now that's not a rosy picture of the future either.
Right.
Oh, definitely not.
At least it's better than not having it.
Yep.
Infinitely.
But I think one of the things the chair has to do is make sure that you're looking ahead.
Yeah.
You know, several years, not just the immediate town meeting, but what's going to happen after that and so forth.
I guess for me is don't want to burden the job to such a degree that no one wants to take it. That's one side of it, and the other side is how to make it work so that everybody participates in some way in this whole thing, so that it shares the burden to some degree. Because I see the burden on the chair as really bringing back things directly from either Don Pyatt or Chris Senior, or maybe keeping riding herd on all of the town departments that want to buy things, right? But after that, it's kind of staying abreast of things, which becomes the hard thing here. So
I would agree. I think it's staying abreast of things that's the harder issue.
Yeah, I think it is too.
And I think with the liaisons, that helps with the departments, on their capital requests and flushing them out a little bit. And some departments are good and some aren't,
But every time we get a new master plan committee, though, that we have a whole new set of things to deal with, as we are all seeing now. So anyhow, you understand where I'm trying to just say, open this discussion up to exactly how many things the chair can possibly do and how much, others can contribute to the whole success of the capital budget committee and being, in front of the issues rather than behind them. So.
Yeah, I think every time you get a new you get new leadership or people in a department or an area, you're faced with retraining them. Because, I mean, take the schools, for instance, they have a new superintendent, a new business manager, and they ask for the world, and you have to push back enough to get them to flush out what's really important to them,
That's a good point. That's very good.
because we can't do everything.
I think the communication with the departments has really improved. I think our efforts working with departments, as liaisons, but also in the meetings and really, asking them important questions and studying, what their ideas and trying to understand what they're trying to accomplish and how we can make it happen if it's a fiscally responsible thing to do. I think that has come very, very far in the years I've been on the capital budget committee meeting as a participant. But you have to have communication is just not us. We have to be the opposite party has to be responsive to communication. So I guess what I'm saying is the departments have been responsive to communicating, but we still don't have that kind of communication with the higher up of the organization. In fact, we're not invited to the table a lot. I wanted to ask the question, whatever became of our letter that we sent them offering to spend time talking about the town hall project. Remember, we spent all that time coming up with this memo that we're going to send them. Did they ever even respond to it? I mean, what happened?
Well, it went to the town manager for his comments, because I didn't want to hit the Board of Selectmen before he had seen it. I thought that was a unwise thing to do. And he's been deferring it, so to speak. He doesn't want to pay attention to it. So I guess the next step I would do would be to just shoot it directly to the selectmen.
Mhm.
But I haven't done that.
Yeah, so I'm just bringing that up, because it's something that we worked on, but I think
Right.
the point is the point that we can come up with the perfect committee here, the perfect group of people and skill sets, but we still have to be invited to the party, to be effective in our roles.
Well, you have to politic it with people like the town manager, which is sometimes very difficult.
So just my 2 cents. So Susan, you bring
Sure.
up an excellent point that, and Ralph, you as well, we have 2 major projects that are on the horizon, one being the school building and 2 being the town hall building. I think at this point, everybody would be very receptive to you sitting down with select board and advisory and talking about this, because it's at the forefront. You don't want to be chasing it. We haven't gone out to bid yet on the town hall, but kind of once that's left the barn, then, it's hard to retract something. So I think now's the time to get in front of it. And certainly it's now the time to get in front of the school building facilities committee, because
I have a
tomorrow
big
night.
question, why we need a new school building.
So,
I'm not sure we do.
right, so that is a good question, and that's something that you should bring to town leadership as well. But I know tomorrow night, we're gonna start discussing putting out an RFQ for building assessments on the school property to figure out, do we need a new school? Don't we need a new school?
Yeah.
Can we get by with a renovation? So you being at the forefront of these discussions is now. It's important for you to get in there now to, start these conversations.
Well, same thing with the new police and fire station if we need it.
And that's right on the horizon as well. I mean, there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah, I understand. Everybody wants to redo everything. Boy, nobody seems very enthusiastic, do they?
Well, I will say this, that if no one else wants to be chair, I'm more than happy to take it on. I feel that my experience is still in a learning curve as far as town budgeting and the ins and outs of where funding can come from. I think I understand it in general, but I don't feel like I have brilliant ideas about how to finesse spending on a major capital project. But I am going to be retiring on the 1st of January. I'm definitely looking to use my time in this kind of pursuit. I won't use pastime, but this kind of pursuit. So I'm willing to step forward. There may well be others, though, on this committee that are more experienced than I that ought to be chair. But I also am adept at working with very disparate groups and finding common ground. In my view, the only way to reach decisions when you've got many different stakeholders is to understand every stakeholder's needs and then look for the common ground within that set of needs and use good discussion and persuasion to find those areas that everyone can agree on and get to consensus. So I'll leave that there.
Thank you, Mike. And your experience on the advisory committee will certainly be helpful.
Yeah.
I
Well,
believe.
I'll take myself totally out of the running, partly because I can't be in the running, but I'm not in the running, period.
Well,
Okay.
you're already trying to retire and
You're
eat
right,
gracefully, Ralph.
gracefully, right.
Now that you're just an associate.
That's right. You know, don't pay attention, you know, those guys.
Does anybody else have any interest? Francine?
I honestly don't have the capacity to
Okay.
take that on, but thank you.
Susan?
I'm kind of in the same boat with Francine. I just started a whole new work life, lots of new clients, and I also have a house to build. So this year I'm going to be, I don't think I have the bandwidth for it.
Okay. Brian?
Well, you just spent the past half hour trying to talk me out of it.
Excuse me?
I feel like you just spent the past half hour trying to talk me out of it.
No?
I'm interested and willing to serve in whatever capacity the group feels is best. It is a big commitment. At the same time, you know, I have a ton of experience on the committee and I feel, you know, that is good preparation. I in my heart wish, Michael, you would join the committee maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because I would simply step out of the way. Because I think there's going to come a time when, you know, you're going to be a brilliant chairman, and it may even be tonight. But I honestly, I think if you know, you'd come over to Capitol 2 or 3 years ago, I wouldn't even hesitate with you know, simply passing the baton. So I have interest, I have willingness, and I'm willing to do whatever the committee feels is best.
I certainly would rather see you as chair than me, to be honest with you. I just want to make sure that we are not left uncovered.
Okay. I don't know if that makes me feel any better,
Yeah.
but I appreciate that, Michael.
Yeah.
And I appreciate
also,
your willingness to, you know, to step forward. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I feel the weight of this commitment. It's a big commitment, but I'm happy and willing to do it.
good deal.
Well, I might make a proposal then. I don't know if I should be doing it or not as chair, but I'm going to make a proposal that Brian hosts be elected chair, and Mike Dick be elected vice chair. And I think that will give you, Mike, some experience in a couple of more cycles before Brian dies on the job.
Oof, whoa.
Woo.
I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, don't say
Right.
that.
Well, Brian, you look pretty good. You
Uh,
look kind of hale and hearty here. Let's keep it going, will you?
So that's the motion I'm going to make.
I'll second.
Okay, we've had a motion made and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Susan,
Aye.
Ralph,
Yeah, Ralph Dormitzer, aye.
Francine,
Francine Lyons, aye.
Brian,
Brian Host, aye.
and Mike Dick.
Mike Dick, aye.
Thank you.
Very good. Congratulations, Brian.
And the next thing we should do is
Thank
deal
you, Mike.
with the position of secretary. Because I have a feeling Susan might like some relief. I'm not sure, but you can speak up, Susan.
That would be, yeah, I mean, I've been doing it a long time. I'd be happy to have someone else take it over.
Nobody wants to raise their hand. There are not many of us.
Does that leave me to say?
Kind of does,
I
Fran.
mean, Ralph's trying to step back, you're stepping back. I'm not sure there's anyone left. I think by default, it becomes me.
Are you willing to do it?
Yeah, I'm willing to do that, sure.
I
That's
mean,
true.
it primarily involves the minutes and keeping up with the minutes. I mean, that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a proposal that we elect Francine as secretary. Do I have a second?
Second, right.
Thanks, Ralph. And we'll do a roll call vote. Susan,
Aye.
Mike,
Mike Dick, aye.
Ralph Dormitzer,
Yeah, Ralph Dormitzer, aye.
Brian Host,
Brian Host, aye.
Sam Wakeman, aye. Francine,
Francine Lyons, aye.
Good.
congratulations. Thank you all.
Listen, the one thing that I want to say anyway, Sam, you've done a phenomenal job for all these years, and we
Oh,
appreciate it. You've been a great chairman, always letting us speak our piece,
Yes.
and just always there to try to keep the waters calm. We appreciate that a lot. Really do.
Absolutely.
Well, I still plan on being involved, but I sense that I'm getting to a point where I'm going to ease off into the sunset following Ralph.
I agree with everything Ralph's saying. I do have a question. When is this effective? Because I've
When
not
is
been
what?
taking. When does this become effective? Immediately or the end of
Immediately.
the cycle?
I don't think we wait for the cycle. I think we do it, as of tonight. We have a new chair and a new vice chair and a new secretary.
Okay.
I don't know, Susan, were you taking minutes for this meeting?
I did. I have them.
Okay. Well,
Thank
why
you,
don't
'cause I was
do it
not.
and you can show them to Francine to show them how the drafts come out.
Okay.
I know that when I have to take minutes, mine are a lot shorter than yours.
Hey, Brian, one thing I can offer to help with, and I mentioned this to Sam some weeks ago. I'm more than happy to help schedule meetings and notify people, just to take the load off of your shoulders as far as, that kind of admin work. Happy to do that.
Mike, I really appreciate that. I'm just processing all this, kind of in the moment. And I think, the various suggestions you just made, and there are many more where we can work very closely together. And I think I'd really like to make that sort of the you know, the tone of the partnership, so that in not a huge amount of time, you know, you feel like you're ready to step into the chairmanship role, having almost already done it to some degree. So let's find different ways to, you know, to work closely together on this.
Sure. Very good.
I know I had a review of the fiscal year 23 capital requests, but I haven't. Michelle's got some of them up on OneDrive. Some of them Chris is still massaging. So I don't see much point in trying to do anything with them until we get them all. But I'll leave it up to the new chair.
I think until we can see them, it's probably not a great
Yeah.
time to discuss them.
And we
Is
also
there
have
anything-
infrastructure on the agenda. And I'm not really sure why that was there, other than town hall, the fire and police station, the schools, and these multi-million-dollar projects everybody wants to do. Yes, Michelle?
So Sam, I think you put that on there. I think that was due to us meeting with the select board a couple of weeks ago. You were involved in that meeting, that we presented all the infrastructure around town. And we indicated we've put together a 20-year capital plan for those large infrastructure projects. So I think that's why it's on here. That won't be ready till probably February or March.
Okay.
But those are those large projects. I do have, you know, the skeleton PowerPoint that I can share with everybody that shows all the infrastructure in town that we're looking at. It doesn't necessarily mean we're looking at it all this year, but it's just, as you indicated earlier, it's time to start thinking about, these are the large scale projects that are going to be coming before you for the town within the next 20 years. So I think, Sam, that's why it was on there.
Well, I guess the first objective would be to update the 20-year capital, or create a 20-year capital plan, which will involve updating the 10-year plan and extending it.
Do you think it's two different plans? Or do you want to see it all in one?
I'd put it all in one. I mean, two different ones. I don't know how everybody else feels. I guess
Well, I guess the question I'd have, Michelle, the 20-year exercise that you're doing with a target date of February, is that must-haves, or is that also a lot of, you know, ideas? Because I feel like the 10-year capital plan should really be things that are more than likely to take place.
Right. I think it's a little of both, Brian, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think some of the things in the infrastructure plan highlight things such as field recreational activities. I don't necessarily think that that's going to be part of the 20-year infrastructure plan, because it's tennis courts and things like that that you've seen in the past. So I think those items should stay on the 10-year capital plan. But I mean, there's purchasing of land for new buildings and things of that nature that are not must-haves, or maybe are must-haves, but aren't going to happen anytime soon. So just kind of discussion points for these items. How about I share? I'll throw it on the OneDrive, what's been prepared so far, and then you'll have time to review it, and then you'll have a better idea of how you want to see it. If you want to see it layered into the regular capital plan, we can do it that way. Or if you want to see a completely separate plan, we'll do it that way.
So Michelle, did you create a new folder on the OneDrive? that you
I
put-
didn't. It
Just
just says
curious why we
FY,
can't See
it
it.
says FY23.
Yeah, we can't see it, so you must not have us, it's not shared with us, so we don't have rights to it.
Okay, I'll give everyone here rights to it.
Yeah.
And if you could send a link,
Yep, I'll do that tonight as soon as we hang up.
I have a question on the note about $750,000 request for town hall. That has not crossed our committee, whatever that is, and we're about 2 weeks out from special town meeting. I would really want to have a series of hearings on this to understand what the commitment brings if that $750,000 expenditure is voted up at town meeting. What does it buy? What does it commit us to as far as a new building?
Right.
And
So,
it's very disappointing. I'll say this to you directly, Michelle. Very disappointing that we have heard nothing. That either Chris Senior or the Town Hall Building Committee has not reached out to a capital budget committee. Has the advisory committee met on this? Do you know?
so I don't know. And I don't want to be speaking out of school, but I don't believe that this was a request of the Town Hall Building Committee.
It was not,
It was not, okay. So
not
it
to
was
my knowledge.
mine either. So this was a request, and I think Don Pyatt can shed some light on it, having something to do with free cash in making the transfer. But the way I understand it is this $750,000 cannot be used by the Town Hall Building Committee for any reason until or unless the project is voted for at annual town meeting. That's how I understand it. I can certainly get you some more color around it, but this is not a Town Hall Building Committee request. So let me talk to Dawn in the morning, get something in writing for you, and I can share it with the whole committee.
Is it on the warrant?
It is on the warrant.
Yeah,
So it's a capital request on the warrant. It should be in front of us and in front of advisory.
all it says is 750,000 town hall project. And it's in the same article as the school facilities study, consulting services for a zoning study, cemetery records upgrade, and new voting booths.
So some of those are capital expenditures, aren't they?
I think so.
Right. I mean, how much are the voting booths? How much are they asking for that there?
We haven't heard any of them.
Right, so the voting booths came on and then came off for some reason. All the information on the voting booths is on the OneDrive. You'll be able to see that when I share it.
Okay.
As far as the 250 for the school building assessment study, that is just that. And we'll be talking about it tomorrow night with the school building facilities committee. And I'm not disagreeing that this shouldn't have come before you. What are some of the other items, Sam? I don't have the warrant in front of me.
Town hall, school facilities, consulting services, zoning study. I have no idea what that is, and cemetery records upgrade.
So cemetery records upgrade is just that. So all the cemetery records are going to be similar to what we did at town hall. Someone's going to go through all the records, make sure everything's, where it should be.
And
Everything's
digitize
accounted
them.
for. We're not digitizing them in this process, but in the end process, they will be digitized. When we met with the consultant, what they said to us was you don't want to digitize records immediately. You want to make sure you have everything
Yeah.
in order before you go to digitize, because if there's any errors, then oftentimes there are mistakes in the permanent file. So
Mhm.
we just want to make sure we're doing it correctly. And I think
So
that's
that's
all I
to
know,
find out where everything's buried.
literally.
No pun intended.
Funny.
I couldn't resist it.
Yeah.
But so Michael, your point is well taken. And I think we did talk about this last year, that whether it goes to CPC advisory, or if it's on the warrant and it meets the capital threshold, it should still come to capital.
Right.
I know we spoke about that. There's a process in place, so let me circle back with you and find out, what's going on and how we can get the conversations on this going before town meeting, which is in 2 weeks.
So Michelle, just a quick question on the 250 for the school building assessment. You
Sure.
mentioned that there's a school building committee meeting tomorrow night. Is
Mhm.
that a Zoom meeting?
Yes,
So that's something that we could
absolutely. Yep.
tap into and learn a bit, and respectfully request that, that ultimately come in front of us. Is that a study specific? I mean, is it an assessment of one building or all of the buildings?
So there's a little confusion. The way I was told how this assessment would work is it's an assessment of all the buildings.
Okay.
I need clarification. I didn't have a chance to speak to Chris today, but from some emails going around, it seems as though they wanted to focus on one building. I can tell you from the RFQ that's going to be issued for the assessment, it is going to focus on all of the buildings.
Okay.
Because that's what we said we were going to do in the beginning, and I think we need to follow through with that. Because oftentimes people think it's one building and it turns out to be a different building, and we just want to make sure we know the good, bad, and ugly of each one.
Absolutely. And it's not just looking at one building for replacement, but figuring out what we need to do to maintain and or upgrade the others.
Right.
So it sounds like
Right.
they have their eye on a specific building, which is fine, but okay. So the 250 is for the whole, basically for all the district buildings.
Yes.
Okay. And who's doing that? Is that going out to bid, or is that
Yep,
something
it's going-
Vertex?
Nope. So Vertex is going to act as the project manager for us and help
Okay.
facilitate it. John
Okay.
Lemieux, who you're familiar with, is
Yep.
going to head that for us. He'll
Yep.
be on the meeting tomorrow night to lead
Okay.
lead the discussion.
So
And
he'll write
actually,
the RFQ in part, or at least review it.
he's actually going to write it, and he's going to present a draft of it tomorrow evening.
Okay.
So
So could we get copies of that draft?
absolutely. And something else to note is the reason they're doing this is so they can submit an SOI to MSBA for funding.
Yep.
We just learned that the MSBA is opening up the statement of interest period January 28th and closing it April 29th. So it's a very quick process. So this building assessment needs to be advertised, put on the street pretty quickly in order to have the information needed to submit the statement of interest by April 29th.
Okay. But the SOI just starts the process, and
Oh.
we've heard it's a multi-year process. Can you give us the color that you've heard there?
Sure. So once you submit the statement of interest, which will be April 29th, it ultimately takes probably 6 months before you even hear if you have been invited into their process. And once you're invited into their process, the MSBA will send someone independently to work with the schools to do yet another building needs assessment. It's not a sure thing just because you're invited into the process. They may come out and suggest that, it's a renovation, or you only need to, fix a couple of items, and they're not going to award you anything in the end. Something else John asked for today when he's putting together the RFQ was enrollment numbers. Let's see the enrollment projection over the next 5 years, and let's see if that's, a trigger, because there's probably 3 or 4 triggers that MSBA looks at prior to awarding anything. One is overcrowdedness. One is inability to learn because of inefficient workspaces. There's a few others that are highlighted. So we're going to have to make a pretty strong case as to why we feel as though we need a new school, and this building assessment will either help us tell our story or not.
Sounds like the MSBA may ask some of the difficult questions that we would have been asking in their absence.
Yes.
That's helpful.
That's a fair statement.
Do you think that at tomorrow's select board meeting that we should bring up the issue of these large expenditures not coming before capital budget?
Are you asking that of Michelle or of the committee?
I'm asking the board, the
Yeah.
capital budget group.
Following the Sam Wakeman, don't put anybody in a corner mentality and try and be, thoughtful. I think if you can get a message through to the chair of the select board and to Chris Senior, a statement that the capital budget committee is concerned, very concerned, that we have some major warrant articles that we have not heard and need to. And ask them, how can we get these requests heard before the 13th of December?
Yeah,
Rather than just bringing it up on a select board meeting, on TV with all to hear.
I
You
That would
agree,
be-
Michael.
Brian, or
Sam Wakeman would do it.
I'll do it. That
They-
way, don't throw the chair under the bus right away.
Is that your party gift, Sam?
Don't throw the chair under the bus. I love
You're
that.
gonna remind them one last time that they're supposed to come to capital budget with capital requests?
We'll try.
Sounds like this job begins and ends the same way.
Yeah. What does everyone else think?
I'm in complete agreement. I think that to just drop into a select board meeting is somewhat of a very direct affront. But I do think it may require more than just, respectfully asking Chris to make it happen. So I completely agree with your suggestion, Michael. Let's touch Chris. Let's touch the select board chair, and probably and that's with regards to the town hall request and the voting booths. And then I think do the same with the school board chair.
Right. One other suggestion would be if Jean Dippold is our liaison to the select board, and I hope she is, then we should also reach out to her as our liaison.
Who's the chair of the select board now? Is it still
Isn't it
Diane?
Carrie? Isn't it Carrie?
It's
Who?
Carrie.
It is
Yeah.
Carrie.
It's Carrie.
Oh, it's Carrie. That's right. Okay. Well, I will do an email. Do you want me to pass it around tomorrow morning?
As long as it meets open meeting requirements.
Yeah, that's true.
I trust your statesmanship, Sam.
I'm just going to say that we're very disappointed that these items have not come before capital budget, and we consider them to be capital items.
Right.
And respectfully request that that they come to capital budget.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
time next week.
I would use the word concerned rather than disappointed.
Okay.
That our what's the right word? I don't want to use the word constitution, but our town charter requires us to hear these requests. And we're concerned that we have been left out of that process. That is mandated by our bylaws.
Well, the guidelines right now say anything that lasts over 18 months and is more than $10,000 is considered a capital item. And I suppose you could argue that all these items do not meet those parameters because they don't last over 18 months. However, I know it that's the argument.
And that's why we need to be delicate. I mean, you don't want to get a cute response. The bottom line is, as a group, the voting booths exceed 10 grand and certainly last more than 18 months. And
Yeah.
the two studies, although they're studies, they're studies of an asset and an investment that's going to certainly last more than 18 months.
Correct.
You're right, which is why we have to sort of just be delicate with this.
But direct.
Okay, I will go ahead and try not to be too abusive.
Just a little bit of insight on the 750. This came up in a conversation with Don Pyatt, I guess about a week ago. And the 750 for the town hall really, as I understand it, is simply setting money aside, for this project so that it's that much less that we have to bond if and when it goes through. So provided the town manager's motion is worded appropriately and that money is locked down for that purpose, that's a reasonable thing to do as opposed to, letting that free cash flow, bleed into an operating budget or some other pool of money that makes it inaccessible for town hall and then results in, increased bonding when the town hall, if and when the town hall comes. And if by chance it didn't, the major renovation didn't come, certainly we'd have 750 grand worth of work to do on that building at some point in the near future. So it can either be repurposed as renovation and maintenance work, or it can be repurposed and released from the, from the article, which we've done many times. But I just think the key is making sure it doesn't sort of disappear into the wind. But putting cash aside and starting to buy down the debt on this so that we don't have to bond the whole thing, I think is a good move. And just my thought on the school the 250 on the schools is that I think we're all going to learn a lot to do this study and engage with the MSBA and hear what the reality of our situation is on those buildings.
Brian, now that we know what the bids came in at for the rooftop air handlers, perhaps maybe we can go back to the MSBA now as well, because they have that accelerated program opening up. Short
Right.
window, but nevertheless, we maybe will have a second bite at this apple.
Absolutely. I mean, with that window opening literally a month from now, and us having not yet awarded a contract, we'd be crazy not to tap the brakes and try and figure out a way to get the MSBA to fund part of it. Hopefully it's not part of 1.5 million. It's a big number.
It is a big number.
Anybody have anything else? I guess, who's running the meeting, Brian, you or I?
You started this one, Sam, and I think it'd be
You're gonna let
appropriate
me
for you to
finish
wrap
it.
up.
Okay,
I wanted to check in on liaisons from CBC to the other groups, whether it's different town departments or advisory or select board and so on, town hall building committee. I think maybe we want to set up that list for ourselves.
do you want me to email the list I have out?
Yeah,
That would be great, Sam, and let's put it on the agenda
I'll
for next
email
week.
that out tomorrow.
That would be great, and let's put it on the agenda for next week along with the the other 3 items.
Yeah, well, you'll have to post an agenda because I haven't done that for next week.
Yep.
So for next week, I'll send the Zoom information, Brian, to you.
Okay.
Okay,
And Sam, I'll touch base with you offline as to how we actually get agendas drafted and posted.
excuse me?
I said I'll touch base with you offline to learn how we get agendas drafted and posted.
Okay, anytime.
and just one more question on the meeting that's been suggested for tomorrow. Is that the school committee going in front of the select board? or is that a school facilities committee meeting? What meeting do we want to attend as CBC to hear more about the $250,000 proposal?
So tomorrow evening is School Building Facilities Committee. They're meeting at 7 p.m.
That's the same time as the select board.
Yeah. So,
It's not on the select board agenda.
no, it's not a joint meeting with the select board. It's a meeting solely on its own.
So it's not on the Cohasset town website calendar and list of agendas.
It's not school facilities building. Oh, hang on.
No. Oh yeah, there it is. Tuesday, November 30th. Yes, it is. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
And Brian, what's on their agenda? Do they have other items, or is it just the focus on the
Opening it
250,000?
right now. Bear with me. School Facilities Committee, Tuesday, November 30th at 7 p.m. Zoom call. Superintendent Sullivan school presentation, subcommittee current school conditions update. There's a statement of interest done by Vertex. And then subcommittee schools of the future update. Okay, Harvard. So they're reporting back on a Harvard school visit. So it looks like they've got a subcommittee looking at quote unquote schools of the future. So some recently built schools. And then it's just topics not reasonably anticipated in minutes.
Right.
So really the core of this is, Patrick Sullivan's going to make a brief presentation. Vertex is going to make a presentation on the SOI and the current conditions. And then, a subgroup's going to make a presentation on their visit to the Harvard school.
Right. Is this better handled then by our liaison to the school committee rather than the whole CBC?
Yeah, I don't think the whole CBC needs to go. I agree with you.
So
I'm
Francine,
happy to do it. I think I am one of the school liaisons. I think Francine, you're one also.
I am, but I have to tell you, the next 2 days are all football all the time. So,
Okay.
oh, right.
So if it's
So-
bad timing, we could have.
How great is that?
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's big
Any and
deal.
all are welcome. Let's put it that way. But
Yeah. And just out of curiosity, what's on the select board agendas? Francine, do you know? I'm sorry, no, Michelle, do you know?
Don't know.
I don't. I haven't even
Okay,
looked at it, to
I'll
be
go look.
honest.
I'll go look too. All right. Good deal. Thank you for clarifying there, Brian. Okay, Sam, take us home.
I think Sam dropped off. Oh, wait, he's dialed back in. Hang on.
We could move to adjourn, guys.
There he is.
I hate
We're
to
on
adjourn
mute.
without
Pushed the
Sam.
wrong button and got ourselves out of here. But I would entertain a motion to adjourn unless anybody has anything else.
So
That's
moved.
probably why I shouldn't be chair,
Okay.
Oh, just wait. I'm going to give you guys many reasons why I shouldn't be chair.
I
I'll
thought you
second
passed
that.
the torch and said, I'm out. I'm out.
Right.
That's fine.
Anybody want to make a
moved, Sam.
motion?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Sam Wakeman, aye. Susan Franklin,
I
Francine Lyon,
Francine Lyons, aye.
Brian Host,
Brian Host, aye.
Ralph Dormitzer,
Ralph Dormitzer, aye.
and Michael Dick.
Mike Dick, aye.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
done,
you,
Sam.
Sam.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your many
Ralph.
years of leadership.
Well, thank
Have-
you.
Yes, sir.
It's,
Thank you
it's
all
been a
for
real
your
pleasure.
support. And if anybody needs anything, let me know. I might have it and be able to forward it to you.
Good deal. We'll take you up on that.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, not a problem. And I'll send the liaisons out tomorrow.
Good,
Sounds
thank you.
great.
All right. And I just know we're meeting next Monday night, just waiting for the posting.
Well, it's up to the chair.
Yeah.
I picked Monday night because there were the fewest conflicts.
So we can certainly open that to discussion. Does anyone feel, any differently? It's Monday night only because it's always been Monday night, but it doesn't need to be Monday night.
Works for me.
Okay with me.
Me too.
Works for me. Me too.
Fine for me.
Okay, just so no one has any issues with Monday night. It's as good as any. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Well, why mess with a good thing?
you got it. All right, good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.
Thank you, Michelle.
Go
Thank you,
Skippers.
Sam. Good night.
Go Skippers. Yeah, yeah.
Go
Yeah, go
Skippers.
Skippers.